In practical daily living, it is really impossible not to have expectations. Some teachers say to let go of expectations because it is one of the reasons for suffering, especially in close relationships. Don't we always have some type of expectation? Yeah, I would say so on the human level. So the way that everyone speaks about this is so vastly different, and it's primarily because our maps of meaning in our brain are so different as to what we mean by every word. So it's like everything, it's like give and take, because if you have zero expectations at all, then it means that somebody could beat the crap out of you, or cheat on you, or treat you in really poor ways, and you don't have some sort of barometer, some sort of expectation of how they should treat you. But maybe they mean expectation in a different way. But this is conditioning on the human level, because also your conditioning will be dependent on your culture, your religion, your upbringing, your parents, your siblings. So somebody's expectation of marriage in Iraq may be different from someone in Europe. So the woman might naturally be expected to stay at home and to bring up the kids, and the man might be expected to be the breadwinner. So all of it is very difficult to pinpoint exactly what people mean by expectations. So Ramesh and Roger would say expectation is suffering. And they would say guilt and blame and shame and pride is suffering. And my take on that is, in the extreme, to a good portion, that is true. And that's most probably true for people that are really identified, like people that have really just got into the subject and really exploring what it is to be a person, that most of their expectations come from suffering, and the guilt and the blame come from suffering. But also you could put it in a slightly different way. Like guilt could be remorse. Like I think it's important that people can understand when they've acted inappropriate and feel remorse for that. And you could say that's built on doership to an extent, but it depends how strict you are with words. So for me, the way it is there is a disidentification with the character. So there's this energetic shift from being that person to not being that person. But there's still a person, and this person becomes ghost-like. So it becomes very see-through. But that person should have remorse when it's acted inappropriately. It should at times be able to assert blame onto people, to say, your actions were inappropriate. There should be levels of expectation. But it's seeing that also that that's not really true. Like in the end, if they don't deliver, if they cheat on you, or if they cheat you inappropriately, that isn't the cause of your suffering. The cause of your suffering is identification. Like that is a pain or pleasure. But I feel like I deeply understand when Ramesh says all suffering comes from doership, and blame, pride, expectation, worry, blame, guilt, pride, shame, expectation, worry, and anxiety. So the expectation is worry and anxiety. I can understand that. But, if Ramesh or Roger, I don't know, but more than likely, if their partner went disappeared, got kidnapped or something, there would be concern for them. There would be worry for them. Like you could say concern, but like saying worry just makes you very human. And I think it's a good word to say. Like it might not be worry like somebody that's really identified with the person, but there would be concern, worry for the person on the human level. But it's almost like that human becomes very ghost-like, and it's deeply known that in the end nothing matters. That if somebody does do these things to you, that's not the end of suffering. The end of suffering is disidentification with the self, with the illusory self, with the illusory daydream. That's not who you are. Who you are is this moment. And I know Ramesh and Roger would say that it's seeing that you're not the doer, which maybe is the same for them and for me. They might not say it's the same, and I don't know if it's the same or not. I don't know how I would tell, but they might not say that what I'm speaking about is the same. But if you just look at it abstractly, then I can see how they could be very similar, and most probably the same from my perspective, but I can also see how they could be different, dependent on the person that's interpreting it. It was so funny the other day, somebody said to me, do you spend your time, how much do you spend in time and not in time? So what they most probably meant was the absolute and the relative, but when they asked that question, my brain was just like, I take things really literally. I don't know what the answer to that is. It was so abstract. But when I speak, I'm always saying that who you are is the timeless, it's not the time-bound person. And it's like everybody's, but then when they said it, I couldn't quite fit myself into it. But I say all this stuff all the time. When they asked me, I was like, you what now? Come what now? Because it's so difficult to put all our words together. In the end, everything is senseless. And that it's just to collapse into this moment, and this moment is without word. And normally when you go into like extreme blame or extreme worry or extreme agitation, it's about seeking. You lose this moment, you lose home, and you go into extreme suffering, and you have to stop that suffering by doing something. But for me, and maybe it's because I haven't reached their state, or maybe it's because there is different ways we speak. There is this ghost of a person, and if Khaleesi goes missing, there is a worry about her. There is a concern about her. And there is searching, looking for her. She doesn't really go missing now, but in the past, sometimes she'd go missing, and I would catch her doing something that she should not be doing. Right, Khaleesi? If that same happened with my partner, and this feels very organic to me, to be this combination. There were times where there was so much resting in the mystery that it was very hard for me to connect in the human world, and I became a bit dysfunctional to people. I couldn't relate to people, and it seems the best thing is this like coming, like the pendulum stream, it goes really extreme and then coming back to the center. So you're not the person, but then there is the appearance of the person. So the person still has these very human responses to life. And the way you deal with life and with humanity, with society, is you deal from a very relative human perspective. Like, you don't mix the absolute. So if there's like no the washing up hasn't been done, so if I don't do the washing, and then my partner says you didn't do the washing up, I don't turn around and go, there is nobody, I had no choice whether I did it or not. I say, my bad, that was inappropriate, I'm sorry. And if my partner goes away and they say I miss you, I say I miss you back. It's not exactly the same as what it was before, like missing or worry or these types of things, or blame, because there's another part that isn't. But it's like it's important to, on the human level, be human and not be some emptiness and vacant vacantness, because this becomes inappropriate, I think. Thank you. I was referring to Ramesh and Roger, but on the human level, I think expectations are always here somehow. But I understand when you say ghost-like. On one level it's here, and on another level it doesn't matter. Depends where we're looking from, I guess. Thank you so much. Yeah, precisely. And also, I think they're taking it to the extreme when they say it. So if you were with Ramesh and his servant dropped the tea all over the floor, he would be like, "Why did you do that? You should have carried it this way or that way." But internally he wouldn't feel any blame. So I saw Ramesh and met him, and I can imagine him responding like that. Like, "That's just wrong way to go," to his driver. "You should be going the other way." Da, 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 da. But internally, there's this deep knowing that nothing really matters and that it couldn't be any other way. See. But I remember from Roger and Ramesh's teachings, I really enjoyed it because it felt like on the human level I could kind of like pull myself back when I was losing myself too much in a story. So it was like they identified stories, and it was like a bell, like I would see when I was blaming too much, and I'd be like, "Bell, bell, 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 this is blame, this is guilt." And I remember this was like a really good practice, because it's sometimes difficult to know when you're practically working stuff out with your mind and when you go into too much la la land. So I found that like a helpful barometer for me. In the end, what's important is resting in what's happening. And when you go into hours of blame or insecurity or expectation, you're kind of, even though ultimately you're resting in what's happening, you're kind of lost in a seeking story of me. Me. Hope that makes sense. Thanks, Carla. That was a beautiful question. And I just say, like, in no way am I meaning in any way to discredit Roger or Ramesh is teaching, because I'm well aware that Ramesh and Roger is very much like, this is the right way and this is the way it should be. And so they would discredit me. Not really, but like they wouldn't really discredit me. I don't mean that as saying something bad from them, but they have a very specific way of seeing things, and I really respect that, and I don't take it as any offense, because they would see, I think, my approach from the top down, they would call it, and their approach is the bottom up or something, and I really respect it. And for me it was such a beautiful teaching and had such a profound effect on me. And I don't feel in any way that I should be teaching that way, but I know that that is their perspective. But I don't know it's their perspective, but I assume that's their perspective from the way they speak. But that's in no way a discredit of the teaching from my part. Well, it doesn't feel like it is, because I feel like I can hold all these different teachings and I can see how they are true. And then I can also see how a different opinion and a different teaching can be formed and can be equally as true, and even though it seems contradictory. It's like I can hold all of them in love and see all their beauty. Yes. And I think Roger and Ramesh are like that too, but just their personality tends to be, this is the right teaching. I can remember Ramesh saying that Osho must have died a very confused man, because the way he spoke.